All right, so water security is becoming an increasing concern in South Africa, with recent protests in Westbury highlighting the urgent need for a reliable water supply. Residents in cities such as Pretoria, even Durban, Johannesburg, they are experiencing intermittent access to water, prompting questions about the government's role in keeping infrastructure in line with growing demand. And while conserving water is crucial, experts stress the importance of broader solutions, including addressing the needs of informal settlements. So perhaps for more on this, we're going to be speaking to UNISA water management expert, Professor Anja du Plessis. Prof. Anja, good morning. Thanks for your time at this hour.
Pleasure.
We're obviously seeing recent cases coming to the fore yet again in different cities and metros across the country. Talk to us about the main factors contributing to the water shortages in major cities. How urgent is the need for intervention as well as we speak?
Look, the people in Westbury and Coronationville, as you've indicated, across the whole of Johannesburg, are saying that they are sick and tired. And unfortunately, this has been ongoing since 2023 when we saw the spike. And this is across the country. It's not just within Joburg. It's in Hammanskraal as well, where they are also struggling with their infrastructure. Merafong this morning, Rand Water indicating that they are cutting water supply by 20% due to no payment, no negotiations have stopped. So it's quite a mess across the country in terms of the water sector. When we look at our municipal supply, yes, our water boards are doing well in terms of maintenance, most of them, like Magalies Water and Rand Water. But unfortunately, the reason why we are here is due to neglect, no action. Our infrastructure is in a state. Unfortunately, over the past couple of decades, we haven't invested enough in our water infrastructure, and now you're sitting with a leaking bucket, where even though the dams are full, the Vaal Dam is still above 105%, and people in Johannesburg are sitting with dry taps.
Well, Prof, speaking of leaking buckets, National Treasury, the Department of Water and Sanitation also spoke about 30 to 40% of treated water is in fact lost to leakages. That seems to be an ongoing problem as well. Talk to us about what's been done to mitigate against that, the impact it's had on municipal finances as well, but even just some of the interventions that are needed at this moment to ensure that less leakages occur.
Yeah, so we obviously need a better response time. When we look in Johannesburg, I think at the beginning, the response time was something about like almost 90 hours to replace a leak. So we have to be kind to municipalities as well, like the city of Johannesburg. They have improved the response time, but what we are seeing is due to poor repairs, etc., and the high volume of leakages and burst pipes, we're seeing that in some instances, the work isn't as good as it should be, and that's why we are finding recurring leaks. But there are interventions that are currently in place, like the City of Johannesburg. They are making the necessary investments and changes. They are increasing the human resources. They are better with their communication. But if, once again, you go to communities like Westbury, etc., they're still going to say to you, listen, all of this is great, but my taps are still dry. Old people are unfortunately not able to get their buckets to these water tankers. Communication is poor in terms of where is the water tanker, when is it going to be there. So yes, the interventions are there, but we will have to be cognizant that South Africa is a water scarce country. We do have major water problems, and there has to be interventions at community and individual levels as well, where we start to see and use water a lot different, try to use it more wisely, use less of it. But again, if your taps are dry for more than 5 days, there's not a lot of water that you can spare.
Prof, if we even zoom out a little bit further, I mean, the issue of urbanization also comes to the fore. You've got rapid, population growth in the cities, centers. And I wonder if you could speak to how this also impacts existing infrastructure, but also what's the reality on the ground of suburbs versus your informal settlements as well when it comes to equitable access to water at large?
Yeah, so let's look at the first thing that you mentioned, our population growth. So across the couple of decades, we've seen an increase in our rural-urban migration, where most people are now going from rural areas to urban areas to try and get jobs, etc. So unfortunately with that, if you do have your urban expansion, we should hope that we were planning appropriately for that, but unfortunately we have not. So another example would be in the city of Johannesburg, where we've seen a lot of urban expansion, industrialization, expansion of economic activities over the past couple of decades, and unfortunately the pace of our water storage has not met that rate either. So if we didn't plan for this properly, you're going to sit with cases like these where your water demand is too much, there's not enough water storage available for people to use. So that's the one thing. That's just in our urban areas. If we look at our informal areas, they are also having major issues in terms of sanitation. And also, like I said, I saw a news article with the Sand River municipality where the people have to share their taps and drinking water with livestock. Now, that's the reality on the ground with most informal settlements, where what they are sitting with are broken taps that aren't maintained, leaking JoJo tanks, and obviously the water supply running thin. If you have communities that live close to a water source like a dam, they are better off because they have access to that water source. But what we are seeing, especially in the city of Johannesburg and most of our urban areas, you're basically stuck. You don't have a lot of water resources around you which you can access, and it is not safe either to access these water resources. So we are sitting in a major problem where in our urban areas, not proper planning were done. The infrastructure is obviously neglected. So you're sitting with a leaking bucket, and you're sitting with a bucket that's too small for the amount of activities and people that require the water. Then you look at your informal settlements where there's a lack of infrastructure, there's a total lack of water services. So for example, if we look at the statistics, they would say that water access has increased over the past 3 decades. But what we are seeing on the ground is, even though you have a tap, that does not mean that you actually have water that's coming out of it. So with the whole municipal system that we're seeing are having issues in the Free State Province, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, all over the show, we are seeing municipalities at this point in time that doesn't seem to be able to provide services to their communities.
Prof, is this a national crisis loading? Are we already at that state? I'm asking this because back in 2023, there was the blue drop, green drop, no drop report that had been released. And even just in terms of the blue drop certification, right, for accountability at large, is it effective enough at this point? How are you going to classify what we're experiencing across the country as we speak?
Well, we are looking at localized water crises. So some areas are affected more than others. Some areas have a water supply problem where others don't have any water at all. In terms of our blue drop, green drop, and our no drop reports, those are essential because that communicates to the public what they are sitting with so that you can make informed decisions at the end of the day, but also giving the department and national government some kind of enforcement mechanism that they can go to these municipalities and say to them, listen, you are not monitoring your drinking water sources. How do you know what type of drinking water you are giving to your communities? Trying to make sure that we are doing the basics properly. But there has to come a point where if the municipality or the service provider has now made it very evident that they are not able to provide suitable services, then there has to be another step to say, okay, so this is the solution that we're going to go with. We are going to appoint a service provider that is able to serve the communities while you try and get your shop in working order. But what we are also seeing is, I know that municipalities are complaining, or they have in the past, to say that they don't have enough financial resources to address the problems within their areas. And what we've seen over the past couple of years with the intervention from COCTA, National Treasury, the Department of Water and Sanitation becoming more visible, being more on the ground, doing oversight visits, etc., we are seeing that those types of excuses have now come to the fore and has shown that that's not really the case. What has happened over the past couple of decades is purely neglect, and where the revenue that was supposed to be collected from water services and sanitation is unfortunately not put into the infrastructure back again.
Prof, it's nuanced, it's layered. There's so many more questions and answers. I need to wrap up, but just in the interest of time, looking ahead, long-term strategies, innovations that should be prioritized at this point. What comes to mind? Let me also add the issue of climate change, climate variability as well. Droughts, increasing as one the country, South Africa being a water-scarce country at large.
Yeah, so we will have to look at a wide range of solutions. If we go back to Westbury once again, we can see that obviously the water supply is not consistent, and it's going to be inconsistent until they fix the commando system, and that's going to take many years. So in terms of that, communities will have to look at alternatives like rainwater harvesting if it does actually rain, looking at water storage options, trying to work together as a community. You can also apply to have a borehole. Yes, it is expensive. So one will have to look at cost-effective solutions within our different communities, and even people can look at fixing their leaks on their property itself. So those are the basics. Then the primary thing that we will have to do as a country is to use water differently. And this is not just communities, this will be industry, business, etc., where we use water in such a way that it's more efficient, it's more effective, you don't need as much, so that you can be less dependent on your municipality if there is a water interruption at the end of the day. You speak to drought. If we look at the expectations that the South African Weather Service has predicted, is we are going to see above normal temperatures and below average rainfall. So that is going to be a definite influence and drive our water usage up. And what we need to try and do as communities across the country is to try and lessen our water use. That at this point in time is the only thing that we can look at to try and use water more efficiently.
Prof, it sounds like a ticking time bomb. Sounds like we're running out of time at this point, especially because it's a basic need that obviously is essential for our livelihoods. Thank you for your time at this hour. I know that there's so many more theses loading from this, but you've joined us now to share some invaluable insights. Of course, we'll leave the conversation there for now. Professor Anja du Plessis this morning, just chatting about the current water challenges, the steps that are also needed to ensure a sustainable water future for South Africa. But still more questions and answers at this point.